A lot of MCs are ostracized from their community or sometimes the whole world. The most famous examples I can think of are Naruto, Deku, and Eren or the Eldian people, since in AOT's case, it wasn't just Eren for most of the time, it was all of the Eldian people. Why do so many mangakas use ostracization to play a part in their story, to help elevate their main character and in turn elevate the series? Now, what does this bring for the audience? Well, the most obvious example that stood out to me was relatability for the audience. Most people who watched anime back in the day often felt isolated by the people around them, since at the time no one was interested in such a niche. So, for people who are like this, could find a part of themselves in the main character's situation, since this part of the audience feels that same loneliness and isolation. Aside from this, it's glaringly obvious that most of the shonen anime fandom back then and now were mostly preteens and teens, especially boys who were watching shows like Naruto, My Hero, etc. There are those who are in Deku and Naruto's shoes at the beginning of their respective series who just want to be accepted, whether that be through a community such as school or cliques within school or by a whole goddamn village. Since for most preteens and teens, not just boys, are using the years trying to figure themselves out, who they are, what they want to be, and taking a step further into discovering the parts of themselves they didn't know they had within. In anime such as shonen, this is usually personified as power-ups. One of the more obvious examples of this would have to be in Naruto, since in Naruto's case, it came through from his relationship with Kurama, with how he gained a tail when going through the Nine Tails transformation, and then the aftermath includes of him finding out what he did to people closest to him, and this coinciding with past trauma, from always being ostracized and making himself become distraught, or finding out more about the parts of his life that he never knew, such as who were his parents, what were they known for, etc. One could make the argument that the ostracization happened externally in Naruto's case, whereas most adolescents, their ostracization happens internally. However, I disagree with this, since with most adolescents, their ostracization does happen externally, but from their subjective viewpoint. Let me break it down for you. This comes in the questions of, am I ever going to escape my parents' shadow? Am I going to make them proud? Etc. In Naruto's case, particularly, the subjective viewpoint first came from the older generations, and over time, this warped Naruto's perception of himself, whether he realized it or not. Over time, the subjective viewpoint from others became his own, that was riddled with insecurities and deep depression. So, if you've been keeping up with what I've been saying, we can already see how ostracization is used to create relatability for the shonen anime fandom, since by using ostracization to bring in relatable themes such as discovery, coming of age, and conveying these aspects of adolescence through the imaginary world of a series like Naruto can help those preteens and teens form strong attachments to the main character. Obviously, nowadays, people have started to take mental health more seriously for the last 2 to 5 or even 6 years now. So, this particular reason for using ostracization, there's less reason for specifically bringing more people into investing themselves into a franchise. Bear in mind, I'm not just saying people will suddenly stop connecting with it, since we're all human at the end of the day, I hope, but when people implement the topic of mental health into their creative work, it'll be a lot less shallow in terms of using it just to bring in more people into a franchise. But you could make the argument that since now people have taken mental health more seriously, large media corporations will attempt to make sure all their shows have mental health as a large portion into why they exist. What message are they trying to bring out to the world, making it instead more shallow? But to me, this is quite paradoxical, since it's because of the fact that people take mental health more seriously, they're more likely to educate themselves in this manner and will be able to know when a show is generally using and portraying mental health in a respectful manner or using mental health in their work as a cash cow. Now, onto a more light-hearted point. By having the MC especially being ostracized within their community, this creates more hype in the future, since most of the time, people enjoy characters who are deemed as the underdog and then rise up amidst other characters' expectations. Since we've seen their character progression not just in terms of the OP powers they've unlocked, but also in terms of personal growth. By the way, just to make things clear, I don't just mean personal growth in terms of the basic definition, where you fix yourself internally, but also externally, because sometimes just having an open conversation or saying a simple goodbye can immensely help you internally. Now, if I use another example such as My Hero, the series clearly demonstrates this. At the beginning of the series, we're introduced to Deku as a complete idiot, someone who kept following his dreams despite what everyone else told him, and now at this point we've seen a lot of progression compared to where he was. For others to say he has already become great, for others to say not yet. Even if people have problems with the anime, I think everyone can agree that when Deku reaches new heights, there's a lot more hype around it because of where the series and the characters were at the start. Now, the main reason why I picked My Hero instead of Naruto is since what little I've said so far, you can easily just replace the words Deku with Naruto. It's that the use of ostracization is used in another way and it focuses on a whole lot of other characters as well, compared to Naruto. I feel like the most obvious case of this is with Shoto Todoroki. Let's focus on Shoto Todoroki since he, unlike Deku, self-ostracized himself from everyone else. Since with Deku, he never wanted to be ostracized in his community. It was external factors such as people in his school, notably Bakugo. Whereas Todoroki, he was forcibly separated from the rest of his family by his father, and there were other factors as well, which we can't say since it's YouTube, and this caused him to ostracize himself due to his hatred for his father. This is obviously portrayed by his cold and reserved behavior during Season 1 and the sports festival arc. In contrast to Deku, where his reasoning for being ostracized was always external, Shoto's case seems to be at first external, then slowly translates into self-ostracization. Now, if I have to give a good estimate into where it became completely self-ostracization, is during the time in his middle school years, since during elementary school, I think it was probably a bit of both, since when you're in elementary, you tend to be really young, so someone would have definitely picked him up at the end of school, and that could have been Endeavor. But then again, he was top 2 back then, so he possibly didn't have enough time. So you could make the argument that it could have become self-ostracization back in elementary school, but then again, it still became self-ostracization at the end of the day. So when we do see Todoroki grow as a character and move past his hatred for his father, when he does appear again to fight alongside with Deku and Ida against Stain, there's a lot of impact to it, since he's able to connect with characters such as Deku, who's gone through ostracization and who we've seen grown past his own version of ostracization, which make us create strong attachments to him by proxy, which in turn makes those attachments stronger with Todoroki a lot more than we would have compared to a character such as Deku, since Deku didn't have a bridge compared to Todoroki, so it kind of creates this domino effect, where Deku is the small domino, where through the course of the series, he breaks the ice and makes the audience create a stronger attachment to those characters compared to Deku, and overall, makes it that much more satisfying when we reach the end of a character's storyline and make us proud on how a character evolved and changed into being the best version of themselves, and just makes it create so much more hype around the character from the beginning, where it revolves around ostracization, and I think this is heightened more for longer running series such as My Hero and Naruto, since we also grew in our own way during our time with the series. It just makes it that much more emotional. If we just take a look at the fans of My Hero, I think we can all agree that a lot of people are more fans of Todoroki than Deku. Now, this sounds a bit strange in terms of what I've said previously, since both have been ostracized. It's just that with Todoroki's whole story arc, it fleshes out this idea and concept since it's more centralized to Todoroki's character, whereas with Deku, ostracization was used as a catalyst in the beginning. Then if you take a look at a series like My Hero comes from, which is shonen, where it's more targeted at boys, more specifically boys who are going through adolescence, I think a lot of them do feel like they're ostracized, or people who are older and look back through their time in adolescence, where they've realized that they ostracized themselves from everyone, whether that be in school or from family. But ostracizing a character, you bring multiple themes for the character to tackle over the course of their story arc. And these themes are usually relatable since these themes reach the shonen target's audience, adolescent boys, or in any other case, ostracization is used to elevate larger themes in the story, and this is most clear in shows such as AOT, where the show tackles themes such as racism and obviously uses ostracization to speak out about these topics and how they affect people who are ostracized and who aren't. The people who are ostracized are usually portrayed to have sheep-like mentality, where they believe there's only one way to live, and that's by going through a system that was created by the people who are oppressing them with the intent of oppressing them more. Whereas people who aren't oppressed often develop a superiority complex, believing in a hierarchy that benefits them. Both are two opposing sides, but they centralize to one point, and that is these mentalities can be easily broken, which leads back to ostracization, and to be specific, the effects of ostracization, since large-scale oppressive ideologies such as racism and sexism, there will always be a person, a group, an organization that will fight to break down the pillars of which supports an oppressive ideology, such as systems, mentalities, or in the case of AOT, completely eradicate the rest of the world. Thank you for watching this video. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video in any capacity, and please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys next time. Also, there will be a part 2 to this. Bye!